Hello and welcome. My name is Alan. Grab you a drink, pull you a chair up. We're reading more Ideas and Opinions of Albert Einstein. We're closing in on the end of the book today. Two short pieces. Then the next episode will finish this book off. So, anyway, let's jump into it. The first piece is called Message to the Italian Society for the Advancement of Science. And this was sent to the 42nd meeting of the uh, Scienza Italiana para il progresso della scienza. Uh, Lucca, July 1950. Published in English in the UNESCO periodical Impact, autumn of 1950. Let me thank you most sincerely for your kindness in inviting me to attend the meeting of the Society for the Advancement of Science. I should gladly have accepted the invitation if my health had permitted me to do so. All I can do under the circumstances is to address you briefly from my home across the ocean. In doing so, I am under no illusion that I have something to say which would usually emerge in larger insight and understanding. However, we are living in a period of such great external and internal insecurity and with such a lack of firm objectives that the mere confession of our convictions may be of significance, even if these convictions, like all value judgments, cannot be proven through logical deduction. There arises at once the question whether we consider the search for truth, or more modestly expressed, our efforts to understand the knowable universe through constructive logical thought, as an autonomous objective of our work, or should our search for the truth be subordinated to some other objective? For example, to a practical one. This question cannot be decided on a logical basis. The decision, however, will have considerable influence upon our thinking and our moral judgment, provided that it is born out of deep and unshakable conviction. Let me make a confession for myself. The struggle to gain more insight and understanding is one of those independent objectives without which a thinking individual would find it impossible to have a conscious, positive attitude toward life. It is the very essence of our striving for understanding that, on the one hand, it attempts to encompass the great and complex variety of man's experience, and that, on the other, it looks for simplicity and economy in the basic assumptions. The belief that these two objectives can exist side by side is, in the view of the primitive state of our scientific knowledge, a matter of faith. Without such faith, I could not have a strong and unshakable conviction about the independent value of knowledge. Thus, this, in a sense, religious attitude and of a man engaged in scientific work has some influence upon the whole personality. For apart from the knowledge which is offered by accumulated experience and from the rules of logical thinking, there exists in principle for the man in science to no authority whose decisions uh, and statements could have in themselves a claim to truth. This leads to the paradoxical situation that a person who devotes all his strength to objective matters will develop from a social point of view into an extreme individual who, at least in principle, has faith in nothing but his own judgment. It is quite possible to assert that intellectual individualism and scientific eras emerged simultaneously in history and have remained inseparable ever since. Someone may suggest that the man of science, as sketched in these sentences, is no more than an abstraction which actually does not exist in this world, not unlike the Homo economicus of classical economics. However, it seems to me that science as we know it today would not have emerged and could not have remained alive if many individuals during many centuries could not have come very close to the ideal. Of course, not everybody who has learned to use tools and methods which directly or indirectly appear to be scientific is to me a man of science. I refer only to those individuals in whom scientific mentality is truly alive. What then is the position of today's man of science as a member of society? He obviously is rather proud of the fact that the work of scientists has helped to change radically the economic life of men and almost completely eliminating muscular work. He is distressed by the fact that the results of his scientific work have created a threat to mankind since they have fallen into the hands of morally blind exponents of political power. He is conscious of the fact that technological methods made possible by his work have led to a concentration of economic and also of political power in the hands of small minorities, which have come to dominate completely the lives of the masses of people who appear more and more amorphous. But even worse, the concentration of economic and political power in few hands has not only made the man of science dependent economically, it also threatens his independence from within. The shrewd methods of intellectual and psychic influences which it brings to bear will prevent the development of really independent personalities. Thus, the man of science, as we can observe and with our own eyes, suffers a truly tragic fate. Striving in great sincerity for clarity and inner independence, he himself, through the sheer superhuman efforts, has fashioned the tools which are being used to make him a slave and to destroy him from within. He cannot escape being muzzled by those who have the political power in their hands. As a soldier, he is forced to sacrifice his own life and to destroy the lives of others, even when he is convinced of the absurdity of such sacrifices. He is fully aware of the fact that universal destruction is unavoidable, since the historical development has led to the concentration of all economic, political, and military power in the hands of national states. He also realizes that mankind can be saved only if a supernatural system based on law would be created to eliminate for good the methods of brute force. However, the man of science has slipped so much that he accepts the slavery inflicted upon him by national states as his inevitable fate. He even degrades himself to such an extent that he helps obediently in the perfection of the means of the general destruction of mankind. Is there really no escape for the man of science? Must he really tolerate and suffer all these indignities? Is the time gone forever when, aroused by his inner freedom and his independence of his thinking and his work, he had a chance of enlightening and enriching the lives of his fellow human beings? In placing his work too much on an intellectual basis, has he not forgotten about the responsibility and dignity? My answer is, while it is true that an inherently free and scrupulous person may be destroyed, such an individual can never be enslaved or used as a blind tool. If a man of science of our own days could find the time and the courage to think over honestly and critically his situation and the task before him, and if he would act accordingly, the possibilities for a sensible and satisfactory solution of the present dangerous international situation would be considerably improved. So yeah, Einstein talking to us, sending his thoughts to the Italian Society for the Advancement of Sciences, um, letting them know, you know, men of science, many of them only really want to do good, to put betterment, but it's the influence of nations and the power of minorities who run things that keep it from really advancing the way it could. And it worries men of scientific intellect with the constant trail of destruction we see in other things. So, but yeah, let's read this next piece. It is called Message on the 100 or the 410th anniversary of the death of Copernicus. On the occasion of the commemoration evening held at Columbia University in New York in December of 1953. We are honoring today with joy and gratitude the memory of a man who, more than almost anyone else, contributed to the liberation of the mind from the chains of clerical and scientific dominance in the Occident. It is true that some scholars in the classical Greek period had become convinced that the earth is not the natural center of the world. But this comprehension of the universe could not gain real recognition in antiquity. Aristotle and the Greek school of astronomers continued to adhere to the geocentric conception, and hardly anyone had any doubt about it. A rare independence of thought and intuition, as well as a mastery of the astronomical facts, not easily accessible in those days, were necessary to expound the superiority of the heliocentric conception convincingly. This great accomplishment of Copernicus not only paved the way to modern astronomy, it also helped to bring about a decisive change in man's attitude toward the cosmos. Once it was recognized that the Earth was not the center of the world, but only one of the smaller planets, the illusion of the central significance of man himself became untenable. Hence, Copernicus, through the work and the greatness of his personality, taught man to be honest. No nation should find pride in the fact that such a man developed in its midst, for national pride is quite a petty weakness, which is hardly justifiable in face of a man of such inner independence as Copernicus. So we have Einstein giving his thoughts about Copernicus as a scientist and his contributions. He says, even though there were thoughts in ancient Greece about the Earth or the solar system not circling around the Earth, it was never something that was verifiable. But Copernicus still came around to show, hey, this is actually is what happening. We revolve around the sun. Things don't revolve around the Earth. But yeah, but that'll be it for this episode. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tries to tell you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll see you all in the next episode. Until then, later.